Hello and welcome to the Sci-Fi and Fantasy edition of the incoming video podcast. This is the show that looks back at the week's sci-fi and fantasy miniature releases. This is episode 20, which looks back at the releases for week ending the 19th of February 2010. And as always, I'm your host Neil Shook. Well, lots of miniatures released this week. It's been really difficult to completely separate out a top 10. So I'm potentially expecting some dissenting comments with my particular choices for this week. So we'll start off with number 10 with a new green from Scarab Miniatures. Now Scarab have taken over the license for the Project X range originally produced by North Star, and here we see their first release for this range. This is their Exiled at 12, which is actually based on the original Project X artwork, as you can see here. The guy on the left already exists in the range as a figure, so this particular sculpt is the chap on the right. I think looking from the artwork, it's a pretty decent rendition of the miniature. I realise immediately it's not everybody's cup of tea, especially alternate World War II doesn't float everybody's boat. But I must admit, I'm a huge fan of the Project X miniatures range. I've been looking forward to new releases for some time. Yeah, I'll put my hand up and say I'm a little bit biased. Number 9, an unusual release from Tobsen 77, a company that's getting a well-earned reputation for unusual vehicles. This is I suppose a VSF or pulp vehicle, being a British Navy blimp, looking all the world like a steam-powered aerial bathtub, although a fairly heavily armed one at that. I ummed and ahed over whether to put this in my top 10, but there's something about it, there really is. It's a fun and unusual subject, but ultimately, it's a really good sculpt, isn't it? Yet another great vehicle from the guys from Germany. Number 8, and the first of several releases this week from Dark Soul Miniatures. This week has seen the release of several miniatures sculpted by Jeff Grace, and this is the Thief of Hearts 2. An unusual figure, not so much the fact it's a dual weapon wielding thief, but the fact that it's a thief with wings. And this is an alternative to Dark Souls' previously released limited edition Thief of Hearts miniature. That particular miniature was featured with a bow, almost like a fantasy Cupid in some ways. I think you'll agree, looking at this figure, again, excellent miniature from Jeff Grace. Beautifully sculpted, an unusual dynamic pose. So the way the base is sculpted really works with the winged figure. And then finally we see a conversion of what the figure may look like without wings. So you can have it as a character model that's leaping into action. Seriously nice model. Number 7, and one of a couple of new releases this week from Redbox Games. This is a miniature called The Keeper. Slightly more unusual release from them. It's a really nicely sculpted model, but I'm not sure exactly what appealed to me about it. But it does, there's something that does. It seems like some form of almost magician's apprentice, if you like. The guy that lurks behind the evil magician, carrying all his equipment and spell books and scrolls, etc. Again, a really nicely, crisply sculpted miniature from Redbox. They certainly seem to get all these things with the big voluminous robes and everything. It seems to be a big feature of a lot of their models, and they continue to get it right. Number 6, and a new release from Mantic Games. This is a new green of one of their undead heroes for their skeletons. And I thought this was, on the whole, a really nice figure. I like the way that it's a decomposing corpse, but still wearing a lot of the vestiges of its old existence. Not quite so sure about the big plume on the helmet. I thought it was a pretty nice sculpt. Subject matter appealed more than anything on this one. So that's their new skeletal hero. However, if you want to know how to sculpt undead, again, we're back to Jeff Grace. Another new release from Dark Sword. This is a Spectre. Ooh, this is awesome, isn't it? I was seriously impressed with this model. As soon as you see it, it looks creepy, decidedly evil. Beautiful sculpting, especially on all the robes. You can certainly almost feel the wind whipping around the model. And you can almost hear this model howling as it points at its prey. It's really nice to see that in something like this you don't get oversized weapons as well. A nice sensible sized sword for a change. But this model just oozes menace. Excellent sculpt. Number 4, and the first of a couple of new releases this week from the Infinity range. We've seen several new releases. This is one of my favourites. This is a Kempite, complete with a combi rifle. Continuing with Infinity's fantastic set of miniatures. As I said before, if you're any sort of fan of anime sci-fi that isn't giant robots, then you're going to want to check out Infinity. Yet again, we see another excellent miniature here. Dynamic, well sculpted, yet at the same time remaining good, crisp, clean lines. Really great stuff from Infinity. Really tempted with a lot of these models. I like the way the retro style works with the undergarments, especially the voluminous trousers, which is a particular style of clothing which is very evocative of a much earlier Japanese period. It's nice to see how that fashion, if you like, is worked into the genre. Nice stuff. Number 3, and the third of featured releases from Dark Sword. Jeff Grace again. This is another Thief of Hearts. However, this time round, this is the evil version. As you see, this is a much more demonic figure, and whilst the good Thief of Hearts is simply there to shoot an arrow through your heart, this young lady wants to rip it from your chest. A great succubus-like figure. You can certainly see the paint job being somewhat gory and bloody. And yet again, although it's pure high fantasy, the figure itself is not overstated. A nasty looking, slightly more fantastical sword, but other than that, a beautifully sculpted model. Dare I say almost sexy. Certainly a rival for the likes of people like Kev White when it comes down to sculpting females. Pretty impressed with this one. Nice looking model. Number 2 is back to Infinity. My favourite of their releases this week. Cheating somewhat, as this is actually a squad. These are assassin barams equipped with various weapons, like shotguns, sniper rifles, even a Panzerfaust, and of course the ubiquitous shotgun and sword as well. A bit of a difference in style, but yet again showing excellent sculpting, really nice poses. For example, the two guys aiming weapons, the sniper and the guy with the shotgun. Excellent poses for any miniature. Clean detailing, slightly understated, which gives room for sculpting without shed loads and shed loads of detail. But at the same time, fantastically sculpted models. Yet more good stuff from Infinity. What more is left to say? Which leads me on to my number 1 for this week, and a fantastically good looking miniature from Freebeta. This is their new Fallen Angel, and this is a huge kit. Give you some idea of the scale. The model itself, the figure is 50mm tall. Its total height is 125mm. Total wingspan 150mm. Absolutely huge, but a fantastic looking piece. Beautifully detailed, especially when you start looking at just how well the wings are sculpted. Absolutely fantastic looking. I mean, they're completely OTT figure in a lot of ways. I mean, you just look at the sword it's starting to wield, and that in itself is just massively huge. But you just look at the quality of sculpt, the way all the muscles are worked, the anatomy. It's just stunning. Not for the faint-hearted, this one. It's a 9-piece kit, and at a cost of just under €26. Not the cheapest thing in the world. But I think you can see why it is. I mean, it's just, absolutely fantastic model. So there you have it. Quite a difficult top 10 in some ways this week. I say lots of interesting releases. I ended up missing out, new vehicle releases from GZG and Critical Mass, for example. I think simply because the Dark Sword releases from Jeff Grace this week were just so good. But as always, what's best in a particular week is certainly open to opinion and interpretation, isn't it? But I hope you've seen something that you like. There are a couple of things I wanted to mention just before we go. First off, I was really impressed with this particular release from Chapter House Studios. Now, I don't normally talk about GW stuff on this show, but I just wanted to point these out to you if you've missed them so far. Chapter House have released this set of Xenomorph heads to convert your Hormigants and Termagants and stuff from Eternid Army into something approaching something more alien-like. I'm a huge fan of the Alien films. I think it's something that's worth a look, I think. And secondly, this week also saw the unveiling of the Salute 2010 limited edition figure. This year's vignette has a sci-fi theme. As you can see, they've gone for a retro sci-fi pulp feel. I think the simple fact that it's not in my top 10 says it all. I'm pretty underwhelmed by this, it has to be said. I know they were having a lot of problems with doing something that was completely different There's a lot of people out there with Sci-Fi Troopers and various other bits and pieces, and so they came up with this. It does nothing for me. Very disappointed with this particular miniature. Before I go, I just want to say a big thank you to Zach at Tabletop Gaming News, Bill at the Miniatures page. Without these guys' hard work, this show wouldn't be possible. What remains to be said is thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Take care, and I'll speak to you next week. Bye.